I have always been really interested in traveling to national parks, and they've really impacted my life. I was going as a little kid with my parents, and then my wife and I have been taking our kids now, um, and they even have these little passport books that the kids can stamp in every time they go. They like that. I'm kind of sad that they don't have them for grown-ups. I guess I could have gone ahead and done that too. But one time I ended up going to the Florida Everglades, and I came across this memorial for Guy Bradley, who was the first game warden for Southern Florida. And he ended up confronting some plume hunters who were hunting these birds for their feathers. They were putting them in women's hats. Ended up being murdered by one of the plume hunters. And it really galvanized the kind of environmental activists of the day. This would have been in the Gilded Age, so late 1800s. But I really thought that this was kind of a template of how art could advocate for environmental issues, and also just it seemed like history did kind of repeat, where we have like something that is interesting to the public, like these women's hats, and I have some pictures of those in a minute, but something that's really hard on a certain part of the ecology of an area, and how you really have to create this public outcry to get it to change, and that art was kind of involved with that too. So just to give you an idea, this is the plume hunter here on the left, and this is one of the hats. And I kind of have this weird thing where I really enjoy looking at these pictures of these hats because they're very beautiful.
Wow.
And I like drawing them, but they almost decimated the population of the snowy egret in southern Florida. And the reason why is that these birds would have these plumes that would only come out when they were mating. And so they were worth like 3 times their weight in gold. So their feathers, they're pretty light, but so a lot of times hunters would just go like shoot an entire rookery and left baby birds to die, and they would just go get all the feathers, and they'd make a lot of money off of it. And so they weren't caring for the baby birds, obviously, and so it really impacted the population of the birds down there, and they kept going further and further south. And so when I was in Flamingo, Florida, which is the very southern tip of Florida before you start going to the Keys, it's called Flamingo, Florida, but there's no flamingos there because they don't live there anymore because of the hunting. But mostly the snowy egret is what people were trying to hunt. So just some other examples. Sometimes they would put whole taxidermied birds on the hats.
Oh,
And then there were, I believe it was either Dutcher or Hornaday, started photographing these situations. So this is an abandoned nest, and they would blow these photos up really big, and they go to the fashion districts in New York and put these in people's faces, like this is what your hats are doing to these birds. And then, of course, there's some political cartoons. I made a comic book called Killer Hats that was kind of inspired by this one on the left, where she's got this kind of ridiculous owl on her head. And then there's one, I can't remember where that magazine's. Oh, I guess it's Frank Leslie's illustrated newspaper. It kind of talks about these taxidermy birds on top of their hats. So then a little bit about the work. I was reading about 15 years ago, this man named Neil Kahn, who is interested in the kind of the complexity of images, and he's assigned these names to them, which I think he understands better than what I do. But he's into brain science, and I'm an artist, so a little bit overlap. But he was really encouraging comic book artists to try to make work that almost had to use these levels of complexity as almost like a poetic form. And so he created this thing he called a reducto, where the pictures get slowly less complex as they move down the page. And I thought that was a really interesting idea. So this was his kind of sample. So you kind of have like all these figures and you do a close-up. So there's kind of a rhythm to it. So that's where I came up with the idea of visual or graphic poem, because I thought if you have a graphic novel, you can have a graphic poem. So then I made an early one here. Where do ideas come from? So if you want to know, I do have a story about it that will let you know where to get ideas from. And then I did some more abstract ones that ended up getting put in an anthology. And so I was trying to push the idea of like what an element in a panel actually was. So these are not figurative at all. But then when I got back from the Everglades, I was kind of like trying to process what I had learned about Guy Bradley and whatnot. And I just started kind of doing these just almost like impressionistic ideas of like what I had encountered. I saw some shorebirds when I was down there. And so I made these. And the first two were just kind of like looking at textures and animals and things like that. And then I started to kind of do a little more of the documentation of what was going on throughout history. So I talked about the birds from the Gilded Age, and then moved on to a little bit with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, who is kind of the major reason why we have the Fort Everglades National Park, because they were going to basically just drain it to make it for sugarcane farms and stuff like that. And she did a lot of advocacy for that. And that's pretty much all I had about the work. So
I love the part where you spoke about the egrets, and that is something that gets lost in the history unless we make an effort to just, talk about certain things, sad or not sad, but just for the awareness that, hey, what can we do? And then also talk about how it is not done now. So that's very positive that there is a law that is abiding us from doing that now, which is very positive. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, I'll let you look at the screen that I have, and I'll tell you a little bit about the 4-H clubs. 4-H clubs are an organization for youth ages that differs from most youth groups that are age related. The girls and boys are age 8 to 18, meet for a meeting, and work together on individual projects and community service projects. Recently, 4-H Clover Buds have been added for the kids ages 5 to 7 years old, but mainly doing group activities. One of the things that makes 4-H unique is that the younger members learn from the older members, leadership and projects. Also, members can pick individual projects that are different from other club members. Sometimes the older, also members can pick individual projects that are different from other club members. Sometimes the older members don't realize that younger members are learning from their example. 4-H members learn parliamentary procedure by running their meetings and planning the activities the club will do. Talks and demonstrations about what the members have learned in their projects are given at the meetings. Recreation and snacks are fun group activities. The community service projects are planned and the committees appointed to carry out the project. The 4-H motto, learning to do what you see on the screen, and learning to do and to make the best better. I have the make the best better one on the screen, sorry. come to the life for the members. The logo is a green 4-leaf clover with a white H on each leaf. The H's represent head, heart, hands, and health, which is in the 4-H pledge. For projects, a member enrolls in a project, gets a project book with guidelines and ideas for exploring the project. Project exhibits can be shown at the summer shows. Members, written or orally, explain what the member did and learned about the project. The most important thing is what the member learned, not the ribbon or the prize. Sometimes what it's learned comes from a mishap or a mistake that requires a member to use a different skill or a method to get the desired results. Members fill out record books about their projects and activities and ward applications. Skills learned from these assist members later in filling out scholarship, employment, grant applications. Several members have commented that filling out the award applications with the strict requirements have helped them. A teacher said filling out the 4-H record books and award forms helped her write grants to travel to all the continents except Antarctica and brings the information back to her students. I'd like to show you the pictures on the slideshow. Let's see if I can do this one by one. Okay, this is the pledge. Here we have 4-H made decorated pumpkins for the nursing home. And this is in the installation of the officers. These are some visual arts projects. The Valentines they made for 2 nursing homes. This one, they're doing an art project. This is a cake decorating, and this is a drawing project. This is some of the exhibits that they make. This is a word burning exhibit. This is a foods. This one is a woodworking project. This one is sewing, and this one is a visual arts with cork. Talks and demonstrations. Viome gave one on health. This one is as she's showing about the use of a horse halter. There's one on archery, pancake in the foods, woodworking. He's showing different uses of sanders. And this girl is showing serging, which is a type of sewing machine. We have cookout meetings. There's a drone. This is part of a science experiment. These are marked, and these are making wireless, can't remember, cat blankets for the Humane Society. Here they're making jam, and this is Code Your World, the science experiment. And in 2002, we celebrated 100 years of 4-H, and there was a bulletin board at the Champaign Public Library. Thank you. Let's stop sharing.
And thanks, Mr. Thomas and Ms. Thiele, for your talks as well. I think what I have to talk about today is no more relevant than what y'all have been speaking about. And I so appreciate, how your topics kind of fit in really well with All Things America Recycles Day. And Ms. Thiele, I saw some of the skills that the 4-H students learn really are fabulous for, upcycling items and reusing things like woodworking, sewing abilities. I saw a lot of great projects out there that looked like they had used a lot of reused items. So that's one thing I might touch on a little bit today, but thank you again, Kuldeepa, for such a nice welcome. And it's great to see a few, smiling faces here today. And hopefully we will be able to do some more things together in the future as well. So my thinking on America Recycles Day is that the point of these types of celebrations and holidays, right, is for us to take a little bit of a moment to not only celebrate, but to think about ways that we as a community and as individuals work to protect our natural resources, right? So that's kind of what's at the core of all of this is, not only reusing items and reducing waste, which is vital to, kind of our combat against climate change, but all of that works together for this sort of larger goal of conserving and protecting our natural resources. So one thing that I thought would be really nice to talk about, that's a really a thing that I'm seeing kind of pick up speed a little bit in our community, which is really exciting to me, is kind of planting for wildlife and for pollinators in our own backyards. So I'm curious to know if anyone does any gardening at home, whether it's, maybe you have a small yard with a plot, maybe you have some pots on a balcony outdoors or something. Any show of hands for anyone who likes to dabble in any gardening at home? Wonderful. Yeah. Okay. So happy to hear that. So some of y'all may, already be working towards this type of goal with planting plots and areas to really attract pollinators. Not only is it wonderful to do plantings and gardening, because I think it's kind of a really nice Zen process, can really be a comforting thing. And it can really be rewarding to see some of the things that you grow, not only maybe to eat food for yourself, but also to help out some of these food webs. So that's kind of what I'm talking about today, is how some of the plantings that we do in our own backyards or balconies or wherever we can put plants can help to impact the larger ecosystem in a real way. So we're kind of talking about food webs and pollinators and attracting them. So I'm not going to talk for too long, but I want to just share. So I will just share really quickly a couple of slides here. Can you all see my slide come up?
Yes.
Great. So this is something I've heard over and over again: planted and they will come. And it's really true. I've kind of tested this out just recently, planting a really small plot of native pollinator plants in my own yard. So let's just look really quickly. The main reason that I want to show these few slides is to show some of kind of the beauty that we can get from planting native plants. A lot of people think of, native plants sometimes as not as beautiful as maybe some of the plants that we could buy that are sort of engineered and set up specifically to produce huge showy flowers. And those kind of plants can be great for pollinators too. I don't want to denigrate any of that, because it's wonderful to have any sorts of plantings for flowers. All of that is great for pollinators. But because some of the native plants have kind of evolved with these insects and these local pollinators that we have, they've had this relationship over time that they work really well together. And some insects even rely on very specific plants for their larval host stage. So as an example, milkweed is a really fantastic plant for the larval stage of monarch butterflies. And they need that plant in order to kind of build up this toxin and survive. So it's really nice to have native plants at least mixed in with some of your plantings. I see a hand. Is there anyone? Do we have a question? Because I'm happy to take questions as we go, and I appreciate the hand up. We could also do questions at the end. We'll hold off for now, and I can give a time for questions.
Okay.
So native plants specifically, I think are really fantastic, and there are a few reasons why. Really because they've built up that close relationship over time with some of the species. So what is a pollinator? Right? Often, what do you think of when you think of a pollinator? If anyone wants to chime in, there's some pictures of some here, but what's your first thought?
I usually think of, that's the first thing that comes to mind for me.
Bees. Yeah, bees are great. And we have so many different species of native, like ground dwelling bees here that do a ton of pollination. Anyone else? Linda?
Butterflies.
Butterflies, yeah, definitely one that usually people are happy to attract, right, to their garden is a nice bit of showy butterflies. Any others, any other pollinators people think of?
Hummingbirds.
Hummingbirds, I heard. That's a great one. I love attracting hummingbirds, and little showy flowers are great. Khushbu?
So, I recently, oh wait, no, that's for something else. I thought that it was for pollinating, but it's actually for cycling. Kind of got confused because there's a bat up there. So
there is a bat up there. What were you thinking of?
I read a passage about bugs, and it wasn't about pollinating, so just wanted to ask.
You know, that's still really cool because a lot of bugs that we don't think of as pollinators still help along with the process. Things like bees, butterflies do a lot of it, but there's also a little picture of a beetle on here. Beetles are going to travel over and sometimes will get nectar as well, depending on the species. There's a lot of bugs we don't think of that have a role in that as well. You said you noticed the bat too. Does anyone think of bats or other small mammals as pollinators? Catherine, did you have that in mind or do you have another one?
I thought of hummingbirds.
Yeah, I love that one. Does anyone put out hummingbird feeders at home? Like with the little sugar water? Interesting tidbit about that. Did anyone know, who can tell me, what do hummingbirds like to eat? Anyone have a guess?
I'm not completely sure, but doesn't hurt to guess. I'd say some kind of sugar.
Yep, because that's what we put in our feeders, right? Any other guesses? And they do eat sugar and nectar. But you know, the most important thing for them, they need protein too. So I learned kind of recently, actually, and I'm embarrassed to say that because I should have known before now, because I talk about this kind of thing a lot. But even myself, I'm kind of, you know, we're always learning new things about nature. So the nectar that we feed hummingbirds in our hummingbird feeders and the nectar that they get from flowers to help pollinate, it's really just fuel for them to hunt and chase insects. So most hummingbirds are actually predatory too, and they need that insect protein as well. So they kind of always have a little bit of source of fuel if they can find some nectar to then chase down and hunt insects as well. I thought that kind of was interesting. So there's a lot of pollinators that we don't think of, right? And it's great to attract insects to our yard, but we can attract other sorts of wildlife as well. I love seeing bats myself, you know, in the evening time. They can be a lot of fun to watch. So to move ahead quickly, I'm going to just show us one more slide to talk about, you know, pollinators in general. This slide kind of talks about North American native bee species, which again, we do have a lot of native bees here in Illinois. These pollinators are in decline and they do things that there's no way we can replace the type of services that they give to us. So think about what pollinators do. There are these thousands of insects, some that we don't even think about every day, traveling around to different flowers in different parts of the season and spreading around those genes all through different places. Imagine what we would have to do as humans to recreate that sort of ability. You know, maybe making, you know, hundreds of thousands of tiny drones. The cost of that would just be immeasurable, and we really can't do it. And I'm sure you've heard the little fact before that 1 in 3 of every bite of food that we eat is brought to our mouth by pollinators. We really need them to help us with our crop production, in addition to keep these food webs for other species intact. So let's get out of this PowerPoint real quick. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second. And I just want to put in the chat really quickly a link to a site that I think is really helpful. And this is a resource through the UIUC extension, and it's called their Pollinator Pockets program. Has anyone heard of Pollinator Pockets program through UIUC before? It's really great, and it was super helpful for me when I was kind of testing the waters, if you will, and planting a few of these sort of native plants. If you go to this link here, they have a brochure that you can look at. And if you scroll down, I'll just share one more time really quickly because I want to show off this part down here. If you scroll down on this page that I showed you, oh, can you see the sort of little thing of circles with the plants next to it here? Great. You can see all of these different designs that they've kind of come up with for you, and it suggests some nice native plants. On the brochure that they have, there's a big list of all these different plants that are useful for pollinators. There's all kinds of tips on here about, you know, planting in different layers, planting things that bloom at different seasons. That's the other beauty about planting native plants, is because they live here year round. There are some that bloom early in the spring, all throughout the summer, and as late as, you know, just recently in the fall, most everything's gone to seed. So you can have flowers kind of all year round with this. And once it really gets established, these sort of native beds just sort of keep themselves going with a little bit of weeding every now and then, because again, they are evolved and they are kind of naturally made, or not made rather, but naturally adapted to live here. So I'm going to stop sharing one more time. And yes, I encourage you to visit that. Check out their brochure. And there are plenty of native plant sales that you can buy some of these things really inexpensively, kind of that are just a year old or so. Grand Prairie Friends has one in the springtime. So I encourage y'all to check those out too, because I've really gotten a lot of joy out of watching what was a tiny little patch of sort of spaced out plants already within the last 6 months, 8 months or so, really fill in and kind of take up that space in my yard.
To thank David for the presentation. I'm an entomologist, so I follow this very excited. And I commented in the chat that I identify a new species of aphids in Minnesota, echinacea. So I'm really pro of biological control. You know, not only the native species plants is only for pollinators, but also host predators, especially predators, because then they help to balance out the pests and insect pests in the field, and it's just the ecosystem is very, very active. So once I attended a biological control meeting, and the lady talked about in the field how farmers mow their edges of the field, and that those edges are such a rich on native plants.
This is about like let nature recycle, do the recycling. So people, they rake leaves, and that's where insects like to hide in the winter. And when they rake the leaves, the insects don't have a home anymore. So then they start to go in the houses, and then down here where the larvae are in the soil, on the bottom, the soil is like very rich, so they go there to hibernate.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Can everybody see? This is a thick cardboard that she's worked on, and she actually did this larvae is right in front on the left-hand side corner.
Yeah.
She actually drew that, and then she stuck that. So there's a lot of efforts in this.
Actually, I just want to comment that we use to make the leaves, we use cardboard boxes from food. You know that. So we take you can see the broccoli, you can see beef, you know, stuff like that. So we kind of pick the colors.
That gave me the mosaic of fall colors there. That's such a good idea.
Yeah, so we were like, it was fun to work on this. And then the ladybugs and the ladybugs behind, you know, we use cardboard eggs cardboard, and then the ladybugs climbing in the house.
I love this one, Catherine. That's amazing. All this work has been so impressive. And, you know, this fits in really well with kind of the thing that I had talked about, because you're right, leaving leaves, and that's a big part of the pollinator pocket. It's good to leave, you know, bits of branches and you know, old prairie plants that have fallen down, leaves, to kind of give a place for those insects. I love this.
Absolutely, absolutely.
This. Here are a couple of finished boxes. This was an oatmeal box. It's the other cut, not the rolled oats, the steel cut oats. There's the smaller box, and this is a toilet paper tube, and these frosting tubes fit in perfectly. This is a gallon jug for milk or distilled water. And I cut out the top, but keep the handle. And this makes a good way to, like, if you're giving some produce from your garden to a friend, or if you're going on a trip and you want to pack things in a box, but you don't want them rolling all over, this is a good way to do it. And yeah, Kuldeepa did a whole video of me and my recycling. So this
Yes.
is what I use to run the hot water into here when I'm going to take a shower. So I run this until the water is hot, and then I can use this for cooking or for making tea or whatever, because that's tap water. And then this is a half-gallon jug, and I've got it marked to cut. It happens to have water in it. And this is cut half-gallon jug. Again, you want to leave the handle, but you want the mouth wide, because I use this with I keep a pail under the faucet. So after I run the hot water, it takes, I've won the water so it's hot. It takes a couple of minutes to get the water exactly like I like it. So water pours into the pail, and then water bounces off my body while I'm showering. And so I use that water, and I fill these half-gallon jugs. I have about a dozen and something in the bathtub. You have to be willing to put up with a little bit of clutter. So it takes 1 to get the old water out, 2 to get the water in the trap to exchange, and a third one to fill it. And that's a way to use the water that you already own. You've already paid for it. It's been metered. And instead of just pouring it down the bathtub drain, you're pouring it down the toilet. And
Right.
that's my best tip.
Thank you. I just think it's about exposing them to all of the opportunities that they have in the community. We did try out 4-H for a little while. I have had them, when they were very young, in different art programs, and, my husband's a musician. So we believe that art is really important. So anytime that we can expose them to art and help them appreciate art, that's just kind of what we try to do. I'm sure other parents have different goals in mind, but I love this talk on sustainability and recycling, because that's an area that I think we're all going to need to pay closer attention to. So I do appreciate you shining a light on that as well.
All right. Thank
you. Yeah. Just adding to what David said, nature, we need to protect nature because nature has a cycle that we want to keep on having, that cycle, repeating that cycle. And I love plants. I love gardens. I love trees. I love birds. To me, this was a tree that was the center of life for birds. The rejuvenation of the birds, the trees, the tree itself. It's a continuing process. And I have another piece also in the exhibit, which is a flower, and the flower has come back from a bulb that was hibernating all winter. And not only it has completed the cycle, it has also provided a beauty that we appreciate, that I would have trouble not living without. I mean,
right.
You need beauty. You need to have beauty in nature. And when we see beauty, when we appreciate beauty, we will protect it.
And actually, this window, it's my garage, backyard window on the door. And every morning when I go to work, I just start my car. When I raise my head, I see from this window, I see my backyard.
Beautiful.
And first one is winter time. And the second one, this is the summer. Oh, I'm so appreciate my backyard. every day in the morning, I'm so happy to see my backyard from this window.
Beautiful.
And afternoon, when I come back home, I just park my car in garage, and I still see my backyard from this window. Okay, yeah, I have beautiful windows. Yeah, also backyard. Yeah.
What I love is the way you have composed them. So, the black part that you see is actually her door. So
Yes.
it's not a frame, but so she has this wonderful sense of composition and she's part of the gardening club.
This piece, it was, I think it was 2013. There was a university high school student. Then just around of holiday time before, and she saw the catalog from Victoria's Secret, the fashion magazine. And then she saw all the models in that fashion magazine were Caucasian models and no other diversity. And also the models are very, very thin figure. And she did not think it was very healthy. And then she started the petition. She needed 10,000 signatures for that petition to go through, and then to ask Victoria's Secret to have a diversity of models. So in response to her petition, of course, I signed the petition. Then I got at that time, I just received the catalog. So from that catalog, I cut some pages, collaged them, and on the right-hand side, you can see, on the right hand, you can see, and this is the model. From different magazine, it's Asian model. So I just use the scissors, cut her off from that model, from that magazine, and collaged in Victoria's Secret magazine. And that's response, direct response to this uni high student petition to have diversity, cultural diversity, and healthy or diversity of models. That was her position. So this collage is a direct response to her petition. I don't know if she got 10,000 signatures to go through that project or not. So, okay, that's the background.
This is a memory game. So it's a memory game that works well over Zoom. And so we're going to look at a tray here in just a moment of 10 items. So I have 10 items on this tray. I want you to just look at it really quickly. I'm only going to keep it up for a few seconds. And I want to see if as a group, we can try to remember as many of those 10 items as we possibly can. So we're thinking about recycling and reusing items. So some of these items we might think about afterwards, how we can kind of split them up into items that maybe we can put in our recycle bin at home, maybe other ones that we need to do something else with. So get ready. The first part is just to remember. I'm going to turn off my screen for a second. And then when I turn it back on, you'll see this tray of items. So I want you to look, and then you'll see the screen go off again. Okay, so try to remember as many as you can when you see the items. Are you ready? Let me see a thumbs up if you're ready. Excellent. Okay, perfect. All right, so you should still be able to hear me, and here come the items. See, I'll give you a good view.
It's really hard to see.
You may be able to, here, let me see if I can spotlight myself so I'm bigger. Is that any better?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
3, 2, 1. All right, that's all you get.
Oh, oh, that was
Right,
good.
not a lot of time, right? Not a lot of time to remember. I see hands up, so if you want to put something in the chat, you can. Catherine, I saw your hand up, so you can go ahead and unmute and tell us what you remembered. Go with one thing for now.
Okay, the paper towel roll.
Paper towel roll. Good one. Anyone else? Go ahead and call one out if you know it.
Pen,
Pen.
auto,
Marker. What was that last one?
about CD.
Okay, we are going to let the
Plastic bag. Plastic bag.
Plastic bag. Okay, someone who hasn't gone yet. Plastic bag was one. Good.
Strawberry.
Yeah.
Strawberry. Good
yes,
one.
Miss Boo.
I saw a light bulb.
Ooh, good one. Light bulb.
I think that was a marker pen, right? Marker.
We got marker pen. Good one. Catherine, do you have another?
I think it was a candle lid
Or glass.
or glass.
Glass. Yep. Good
Oh,
one.
that-
Star.
Yes, Viom, did you have something else?
Yeah, there were 10 items.
I saw a Post-it note, I think.
Yeah.
Post-it note. Good one.
Good job.
There was something yellow that looked like a knife or something, folded knife.
That's good. We've got 2 more items and you've got the yellow thing. Did anyone else notice what that yellow thing was?
No.
It looked kind of like a plastic toy piece of corn.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Piece of corn. Nice one.
Ah,
There's one more thing.
It's a cup with a handle on it.
Paper cup.
yeah.
Yeah.
Paper cup. Excellent. Nice job, y'all. Usually we can't get all 10. There's typically 1 or more left. Give yourself a pat on the back because y'all remember.
We're all brilliant, you know.
We got all 10. So let's think about where we can put some of these really quickly. What can we put in our bins at home? Who can tell me? What about the CD? Can the CD go in our bins at home?
No.
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 Yeah.
Trash and can.
No, this you have to recycle in a special way. It can be sent off to certain places. We were taking some things this past week at the Nature Center to send off. If you have CDs at home, feel free to bring them by the Nature Center next week. We were only technically collecting them this week, but I won't send them off for another week.
I have seen so many artists use CDs, made cloths, made artworks. And then another thing was we don't call using this material to make art as recycle. What do we use? I wrote in one of my statements, it's upcycle.
Yes.
Upcycling.
Yeah.
Great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
I have a Christmas tree, so to speak, that I bought at the market that is plaster or something, and it's covered with little pieces of CD, so it sparkles.
Yeah.
It's like a cone and covered with little pieces of CDs. Very
Yeah,
pretty.
shiny. That's a great point. Yeah, these are wonderful for upcycling. We have this little craft kit from the Idea Store. Away right now too, and a CD is great for craft projects, but also art for sure that can be permanent. Yeah, that's a great one. So yeah, that we can't put in our bins, but we can find other uses for it, either upcycling or finding other places. What about cardboard tubes? Can those go in our bins?
Yes.
Yeah, for the paper bag.
Yep. Oh, the
recycle paper. Yeah.
Yep. Any kind of paper, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's a paper kind of cardboard product or paper, we can do paper cups. This one, actually, if we look closely, some cups like this, we can even compost. So some of these items that we looked at, like what about the strawberry and the corn?
Yeah, that's plastic. We can recycle plastic.
These are, yeah, that's true. We can recycle the plastic ones. If they were real strawberries and corn and maybe they've gone bad, we might think about composting them.
Are they the right number though?
Oh, that's true. That's another thing you want to check for. Some hard plastics, or especially soft plastics, you can't recycle. A lot of times I can try to tell by feel. These don't have numbers on them, so I'm not sure. Yeah, that's a good question. Plastics can be tricky. A lot of the plastics that our food containers are made of, though, they're generally recyclable if they come from the grocery store as a food container.
Sometimes you have to take off like the plastic film on top of it and it'll have a graphic right on it that shows the bottle, let's say, like if you buy milk at a convenience store, it'll say the wrap, have a line through the recycling thing, and then it'll have the bottle itself, and it'll say yes.
I just show you what I did.
Wow.
What
know
is
if you-
that, Mrs. Steely?
This is the bird that I put on the
Beautiful.
tablecloth. I mean the tea towel.
Stitching.
So instead of using paper towels, you can use cloth.
Bobby, you mentioned taking off the soft plastic lid. Soft plastics we can recycle too. Not only grocery bags, but bits of soft plastic can go in with those grocery store bins. We have a big soft plastic thing here. So there's ways we can do these kind of things if we just are, conscious about it. Maybe it takes a little bit more effort, but we can make it easier on ourselves just by giving it a little thought. So that's about all, everyone. Definitely take advantage of some of these resources. And it was so nice to hear some other people talk today. And I was so impressed by the art exhibit. I'd love to see some of those things in person sometime. So hopefully I'll get that opportunity.